if you're in California, you need a system that's about produces about 150% of the power that you need to generate, like using the old model. So instead of 100,000 kilowatt hours, you'd have to produce 150,000, right?
Right.
And then a lot of it you're going to go into the grid, and you're not going to like really get much for it. But it will allow you to make sure that you're producing enough energy during the day in the winter time that can also be stored, that can be used. And then at the same time, you need to make sure you have enough storage to use to store what you're going to need throughout that day as well in the winter, right?
Right.
So if you kind of build for like the lowest day and the worst day in the winter, that can assure that you have the closest thing to a $0 bill. Like, that's how complex this thing is. So just by simply saying, "Oh, hey, we have this," isn't enough to
Right.
say, "Yeah, we can guarantee you a $0 bill." Well, how do you know that? So there's a couple of complex tools out there now that allow you to say, hey, this is how your system's going to produce energy. We can tell you minute by minute how it's going to produce energy. Same
Right.
thing, most utility companies can tell you minute by minute how you're using energy. We can combine those together, and then we can actually design things and say, hey, this is what your actual offset's going to be. And I can tell you pretty much down to the penny what you could expect to pay from your utility company once you go solar. So
I but also just explaining that whole story. Sun is not always out. Explaining net metering. That's kind of a good way just to kinda let everyone understand, and so there's not surprises down the road and, like, feel like you got scammed. I paid all this money for solar, and I'm still getting a utility bill. Why is this? Right? And then it's kinda just being realistic, like, we're covering 90%. There's these things that can happen, and having that real conversation, so if that does come up, there's not a surprise. But it's also going back to just making sure you're modeling out the right system.